Well, joining us now is Mark Schulman, the author of Tel Aviv Diary and a columnist at Newsweek. All right, Mark, to begin, break down exactly what happened in Los Angeles that sparked these clashes.
Okay, so the clashes began because ICE decided to do accelerated raids in Los Angeles, primarily looking at workplaces to find as many illegal immigrants as they can. And of course, ICE raids tend not to be, shall we say, with the velvet glove. And this created the pushback and the protests that turned into riots against the ICE agents who are doing what they're doing. So that's the background for the unrest that exists. By the standards of Los Angeles, this is not, huge amount of unrest. It goes back to, I think back to 1965 riots in Los Angeles and other periods of time. This is a bit of unrest. This is protest. This is semi-violent protest. This is not something that's way out of control yet.
Right.
So that's where this part stands. The other side of this is the decision by President Trump to do what he's doing, which is to call in the National Guard. The last time this was done was in 1965, when President Johnson called in the National Guard in Alabama to enforce the civil rights laws because the governor of Alabama refused to do so. So there were a number of times during the civil rights struggle where the National Guard was called in by the president, including with Little Rock, Iowa,
Right.
but goes way back to President Eisenhower. But since then, it's never happened. The National Guard is under the control of the governors, and the governors are the ones that mobilize the National Guard.
Right. So this is highly unusual. That was actually what I was about to ask you. I mean, could Trump's move be seen as political theater, or is it a sign of a deeper federal local tension over immigration that we're seeing?
Okay, two parts of this. Number one, of course, it's political theater. He's particularly declared war on California as one of his goals. The more threatening mention was the mention of sending in active duty Marines to put down the riots. Now, this would violate the Comstock Act, which basically states that except in a case of national rebellion, the active troops cannot be used domestically in any which way, police role or anything else. Even in this case, in order for the president to call in the troops, the National Guard, he has to declare that this could lead to a rebellion. And of course, this has been the fear all along, that President Trump would use the threat of demonstrations, violence, etc., to expand the power of the federal government, and specifically his power by calling in the National Guard, calling in the armed forces at all to put down demonstrations. And of course, this goes against most American traditions in terms of demonstrations, civil rights, everything that's related to that.
Mark, what has the public response been here? I mean, who exactly was taking part in these protests? Was it members of the Latino community, the immigrant community that was being, specifically targeted here by ICE? Or are we seeing broader, a broader context here, more and more people from the American public joining in on this?
You're seeing more and more, but not really that many. I mean, think about something. Compared to what happened during his first term, there are just not that many people in the streets protesting President Trump's policies. His policies have been, stronger, more extreme in some ways than they were the first term, and yet people have remained home by and large. This struck a particular nerve. The whole immigration issue is one of these strange issues where quite clearly the majority of the American public approve removing illegal immigrants, but not the illegal immigrant that they know. So it's one of those odd things where the theoretical idea of removing illegal immigrants, especially those who are doomed to, claim to be members of gangs and everything else, everybody supports. But when it comes to the person they know, their gardener or their the person working in the local diner or whatever it might be, that people get upset about. And we've seen that also. People who had church members taken out and been deported, people come out against that as well, even people who generally support President Trump. So we'll have to see. This brings it to a new level of opposition, let's put it that way, because people see it, it's very real. It's not something theoretical. It's not like a question of taxes and things of that nature. It has an immediate impact on people when they see someone they know being taken away and
Absolutely.
disappearing into the immigration holes. Let's put it that way.
All right, Mark, stick with us because we have more drama to cover here. Drama in D.C., more specifically. U.S. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk are officially over. Their once close alliance has exploded after Musk slammed Trump's flagship tax and spending plan, the One Big Beautiful Bill, calling it a, quote, disgusting abomination. Well, Trump has hit back hard. He's threatening to pull federal contracts from Musk's companies and reportedly saying that Musk has gone crazy. Well, both men have since launched a series of public jabs at one another, with Trump warning of serious consequences if Musk supports Democrats, Musk floating a third-party run, and even accusing Trump of ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And the tech tycoon has since deleted some of those inflammatory posts, but he has kept his fiscal critiques in place. Meanwhile, markets are spooked by all this. Tesla stock has plunged, government efficiency reforms are faltering, and the GOP establishment is divided. So what does this public feud mean for American politics and both of these men's futures? Mark.
Okay, well, this is the most expected feud. We didn't expect it to happen quite like this, but anyone who knows both men, and especially who knows Musk, these are two really strong narcissists. You put two strong narcissists together, and usually it doesn't work out too well, and this is what's happened here. These people are intertwined in ways that they don't even like. The big issue, of course, is SpaceX. Trump can claim that he's going to pull SpaceX's contracts, and of course, SpaceX depends on U.S. contracts. On the other hand, the U.S. depends on SpaceX because right now it does not have a viable way to go to space. Now, SpaceX has been the most innovative company in terms of space exploration. Everybody else has failed. Boeing has failed. So far, Blue Origins of Amazon has not gone very far. So the U.S. is dependent on SpaceX. On the other hand, they're both dependent on each other. It's a symbiotic relationship between Musk's companies and the U.S. government. But both of these people know how to keep a grudge. So I'm not really sure where it goes from here. Trump is well known for his grudges. On the other hand, Musk has a lot of money, and he can use his money in all sorts of ways to try to defeat some of Trump's initiatives.
Yeah, of course, one of the questions is whether or not Trump would actually follow through on those threats to revoke Musk's federal contracts.
Right, that's always a question. There's always a question with Trump what he'll follow through and what he doesn't follow through. He does seem to follow through more than less when it comes to a payback. That he seems to remember to do more than other areas, let's put it that way. But like I said, it'd be very, very difficult for him to revoke SpaceX's contracts because he doesn't have any other alternatives. There was an article yesterday, the Pentagon and NASA is looking for an alternative. Well, there is no alternative right now. There's no alternative to SpaceX. So I don't see that happening. Look, the underlying problem, of course, that he has with the bill is a realistic problem. The bill does create a tremendous addition to the deficit. But no one's willing to talk the positive side. The way to solve this problem is, of course, to cut back on the decrease in taxes. That's the way to get rid of the deficit issues, but no one's willing to talk about that because that goes against what all these people believe, which is lower taxes is the best way of going. So we're stuck with a situation where the deficit's going to increase dramatically, and Musk understands what that means. And he thought he could save money, but like everybody else has come to Washington, thinks that a businessman can solve all the problems. Washington is much more complicated, and the federal government is much more complicated to try to save money. You just can't cut it and expect it to disappear, especially if you don't touch the major things, which is defense, Social Security, and other entitlements.
Right. Well, from bromance to bitter feud, we're obviously going to have to wait and see how this plays out, if they're going to make
a great novel someday.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us.